We're good now. Sorry. I am so happy that you're
That's all good.
here. Um,
Oh yeah, same.
Hello, everyone. I'm Justice Dove. I am the wife, half of this YouTube channel, which is called Married in Medicine. If you're new to our channel, welcome. Just a little bit about our channel. So, me and my husband, we are incoming M1s for an osteopathic medical school in the fall. So, literally in a month, we will be beginning our journey of becoming doctors. Our journey to medicine has been very unique in its own way. And so we wanted to share our experiences with you all in hopes of building a community of more people, not only that look like us, but look like some of the people that we will have on our channel who may be having a difficult time getting into medical school because it is a very hard process. So today we are going to have one of our old classmates interviewing and talking about his experience. The reason why we decided to choose him is because we decided to do a series, and this series will be about pre-meds who get a master's after undergrad, and they can talk about their experience of what that looks like. And so I hope that what he has to bring to this interview will help you in some way, provide you with some hope, provide you with some drive, provide you with an idea of what would be best for you in your journey. Without further ado, I do introduce you to Mecca.
all right. So
Okay, no problem at all.
tell me about yourself and anything you feel like a pre-med should be aware of or should be, should be aware of.
Yeah, so basically, my name is Emeka Ikeakanam. I'm currently working for my parents' daycare center. I'm in the middle of applying again. So I applied this past year. I'm on a wait list. So I'm currently just waiting it out, but also making sure I'm checking off those boxes for this upcoming cycle. I did my master's at NC State in physiology. I did my undergrad in biology and chemistry at ECU with Justice. And yeah, now I'm just, yeah, getting ready for this next application cycle. And things for pre-meds, just work on your application, but also just make sure you know what you want. So also, by knowing what you want, that means knowing how, if it doesn't work out, what do you do then? Knowing backup plans, knowing how you could leverage yourself, your past application, what you're doing during that past application for this next cycle, and just kind of making sure it's about what you want rather than what you think that they'll want.
That's
So
good. That's really
I guess
good.
that's good. Mhm.
Sorry. That was really good. Instead of what they think, that checklist in your mind that you get, you need to do
Yeah,
shadowing, you need to do volunteering, you need to uh, do all this stuff to get into med school. Instead of trying to check all those boxes, do what you think. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Anything else before we actually dive into your experiences so that everybody can kind of get a feel for who you are?
that's about it. Like, just yeah, I'm currently in the process myself, so I'm not there yet, but I'm not being discouraged from med
You
school.
shouldn't be at all. So what attracted you to medicine so that they can understand like where you're coming from with your applications?
Mhm. Well, I guess it's a kind of long story. So basically, and I've been around medicine my whole life. Like my mom's a nurse practitioner. I'm coming from a Nigerian household, so most every like African knows like your parents want you to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, something like
Yeah.
that. So that's always been like kind of pushed to me. But and it wasn't until I basically like high school where I took this athletic training, sports medicine class where I was an athletic trainer student aide. And that's where I got to do like rehab, just working with different players and stuff like that. That's what really got me interested. Also, the teacher was a great teacher. He told us about like all the different medical professions, told us about MBD, nurse practitioner, all PA, all that stuff. So I was learning a lot about med school in general during that time. or just medicine in general. And then undergrad, I got more of a community health aspect of understanding like what that was, and just working with the community in general. So I was from high school, I was looking more to like PM&R, so like more sports medicine stuff. But once I started working with the communities in general in undergrad, I was more into just basically like preventative medicine, so working with communities. So whatever specialty I hope to get into is still kind of up in the air. I just need more experience. And then, yeah, it was more solidified once I got to NC State, because that's when I chose to focus more on medicine. So I try to tailor my experiences more towards getting into med school rather than just experiences to further like my own growth, basically.
Ooh,
so
can you expand on what that means?
So in undergrad, I just wanted to know more about like who I was, what I like doing. So I thought that first community service is like the first thing that most people do. And I wanted to see like what that was for me, because I did a little bit in high school, but it was just stuff my parents kind of pushed me towards. So it wasn't stuff like of my own choosing. So that's when I joined the team. Like, just as you know about that, it was Talented, Empowered, Inspired Men. So what we did is a lot of community service, a lot of networking, lots of just like building that community within ourselves, within just giving us life skills that we could take on to anywhere else. And by joining them, that's when I realized I really have a passion for like just working communities, doing stuff, like making sure that I'm the one kind of coordinating most of these things. So I like being the
leader,
I guess head, the leader in those scenarios. And
doctors are leaders.
Medicine was always, yeah. So medicine is, I want to be the leader in the medical field, because that's where I'll find the most like happiness throughout my career, basically. So, and then NC State, NC State, I just was trying to get more tailored towards medicine experiences. So my master's program, there's everybody trying to get into either med school, dental school. Someone got into like an anesthetist assistant or something like that. So it's just many different like people in the same field as you. So that's how I got networks for trying to get into ophthalmology. Like that's where I had an ophthalmology experience for a year. I shadowed a DO for a little bit through another one of my connections. So it was definitely, I like doing things that kind of fit where I can get in, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
what prompted you to get your master's, and like, do you think the physiology master's program propelled you or improved your application, or anything you feel that someone who may be in our situation where we graduated and we weren't going straight into med school?
Yeah. So what prompted me to get my master's just was my undergrad GPA wasn't the highest. So I did my master's because there's post-Bacc programs you could do, but in all the one, because I just knew people who did the master's program that I applied to. They said that it's a really good way of like bumping up the application, but also giving you a master's degree as well. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to use that master's degree to, in case I didn't get in, I still at least have a master's degree that I could potentially use for other things if I don't get in. So that's kind of what prompted me to get that master's. And then, what was your other question? I'm sorry.
Sorry. I was just saying, how do you think your application helped or didn't help, or like?
Well, it definitely showed that. Oh yeah, so it definitely showed that I had an increase in my science and all that. So that's mainly the biggest thing that my master's helped me do, help me get my science scores up, and just overall, because the thing is with my master's program is in physiology. So it's not really like an MPH or anything else that would give you more of a give you more leverage, I guess, outside of just a post-bac, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of what I'm working on now, just using my master's as a leverage to, as I'm applying to new jobs and all that.
Yeah. So when you say leverage, like when comparing it to a post-bac, like what does that mean? Because you got to keep in mind, these are, we're hoping that we are targeting those people who are pre-med, who may be still in still in undergrad or out of undergrad and have no clue what to do to really increase their chances of med school. You always hear retake the MCAT or get a higher MCAT score or get a master's, but like there are other options. So like, what do you mean by leveraging a post-bac?
So for me, because the thing is, it's different for everybody, but for me, I was kind of like a one-track mind. I didn't really look to other options and all that. So for what my master's program is, like what they gave me is just, they gave me the degree, but it's not really useful outside of applying to healthcare because it doesn't give you hard skills. So MPHs, they usually give you something that you could market to maybe like whatever type of public health agency you're trying to work for, rather than the MPH, rather than the physiology program, which gives you just the science courses that you need to do well, because it's also a non-thesis master's. So
what does that mean? I don't even know what that means.
So most master's degree, you have to have like a thesis statement or some thesis that you have to write. So this master's program, there is a thesis option and a non-thesis option. Thesis is if you're trying to work into something like research or some type of actual hard research that you're trying to get into. But that's more for those candidates. They're not really trying to get into med school. So that was the difference for that master's program. And then for post-bacc, it's just like a year. I don't know many that are like more than 1 year, but those really just help you get those undergrad courses that you didn't do too well in, to show that you did better in them, that you actually have the capacity to do well in these higher level science courses.
So I know everybody is different. We know this. We're not saying that one shoe fits all, but in your opinion, what would you think would be better if you have a low GPA, getting your master's or doing a post-bacc? This is a question.
Well, because that definitely is a hard question. Because it depends on like how confident you are in yourself and how stable you are in kind of your life in general. Because your master's is a piece of paper that shows that I graduated from a graduate program. If you're applying to jobs, they said, oh, you have a master's. That's more impressive than just a bachelor's. But if you have just the utmost confidence in yourself that you will do the best as you can, which we all have the confidence in ourselves to do great. But if you don't want to go through, most master's programs are like 2 years long. There's some that are about a year long, but you have to kind of tailor it towards whatever school or whatever state you're in. But I just say do whatever. If you think that you could still be stable, have a job, be able to do whatever you want to do outside of medicine, I just say go ahead and do the post-bacc, because that's usually like a year long. And if you tailor it right, so there's some programs that have, there's some schools that have a program that you can do for a year, and then it's almost a guaranteed admission. So I think Georgetown has one. My cousin did something like that. Meharry, I think it's a master's program, but it might be like a year long or something like that. There are different programs out there. You just have to kind of look for whichever one suits what you want for that next gap year or 2 gap years that you're taking. Because what I did was not really look out. I just kind of did whatever people in my circle did, and kind of it fit me better as well. So
I'm gonna add something. I notice a lot of things that pre-meds do They do sometimes without completely doing all their research, and they're just listening to their friends. And you're going to probably see that as a theme on this series that I'm doing, because and I didn't intentionally pick my friends that happened to. It just, it seems to be a common denominator. So you might hear this again, y'all, because it's a thing. I got my MPH. Yes, I wanted it, but I also was like listening to other people that I may not be able to become a doctor. So I was like, well, but guess I gotta get a master's because I need to make money. Like my undergrad in public health isn't gonna do anything. Getting your BS in public health is actually relatively new. To really get in the public health realm, you do have to have a master's. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go and get a master's. I didn't know this. So definitely do your research. How do you utilize your degree?
Right now, I haven't since I graduated, because when I graduated, I just wanted to focus on doing the MCAT. So that I moved back from North Carolina to Georgia so I could stay with my family and just work for them for a little bit as I try to do better on my MCAT. Luckily, I was here when COVID hit and all that, so I'm glad that made the better decision for me, because that was what's more important at that time, was like spending that time with my family, because I just been like, my parents moved to Georgia when I started undergrad, so I was just in North Carolina the whole time. So with that going on, I just was trying to spend more time with them, at least before making whatever move I would be doing for med school.
Right.
And when COVID hit, it made me allowed me to spend much more time with them than I would have. So it worked out. But what was your question?
How are you utilizing your degree?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So how am I utilizing it? Like right now, I'm just kind of using it to get into clinical research, basically.
Right.
So basically, just trying to get into
your med school interview application, anyways, too.
Yeah. So this clinical research is like what I'm mainly trying to use it to as my leverage, because many of them, I think clinical research coordinators, you're able to use a master's degree in lieu of experience in clinical research. So that's one avenue that I'm trying to take. But
I hear that. That's one avenue. If you go and get your master's, that may be beneficial. And if you're still trying to go down that track of medical school, it's definitely going to increase your application. Doctors do research. But I told my followers, even though we only have like 6 right now, but I told them how I retook the MCAT multiple times, and I increased 10 points. And, you know, a lot of times people don't hear that like you can increase. Definitely, if you could talk about your experience of jumping that high and how it, like much higher, well above 500, and how that made you feel. Like,
well, yeah, because I took the MCAT because my parents were saying, oh, just take it once just so you could kind of see where you're at, which people don't really, I guess people kind of advise against that because I just wasn't really ready for it, and I didn't study that much for it. So I just took it right after my master's program, like maybe a week or 2 after it. I didn't do hot at all. So then that kind of just like almost discouraged me, like before, like during the summer program I was in at UNC. And then I just took that time just to, when I moved back to Georgia, just to study a lot more. And I jumped 17 points. So it was a really big change.
No, I just love it because I'm telling you, people tell you can't increase more than 3 points. And that's a lie. I increased 10. He increased 17. It is possible to increase your your MCAT score.
Yeah. So it's definitely possible, but you kind of just have to understand that it is possible first. Like, I wasn't that motivated, like when I first started studying for the MCAT, because the scores I was seeing on my practice test still were not even that great comparatively to like my first score. So it just took time and practice, and something usually kind of just clicks that all of a sudden your scores just start increasing and increasing over time. So, and I actually did better on the MCAT than I did in any of my other previous practice tests by like about 3 points or so. So yeah, I was just impressed with myself.
You need to be. And I've heard that happen a couple of times where in practice, when you actually take it, it's about 2 or 3 points higher. I think the same thing happened to me. I was actually shocked what I got, but I was hoping it would have been higher. But whatever, that's me. Thank you for getting into that, because I really want people to know, we would prefer you not have to retake it. Like,
Yeah.
don't take it until you're ready. But let's say you take it and you do a bad job, like schools will still look at you when you have to retake the MCAT. Be prepared to have to talk about it in interviews. Like, why did you retake it? How did you jump this? Jump, because I had a question like that too. So yeah. Is there anything you would have done?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, and for like the school I'm getting waitlisted for, like in that interview, they were really impressed by just how much I jumped for my MCAT, which was a plus in the interview. So yeah, that's
It is.
they do talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, they bring it up. And if it's better if you have a closed file, then just don't talk about it. That would be my recommendation. So if you have an open file, be ready to have some responses. What would you have done differently with maybe undergrad or your application or anything like that?
Well, for undergrad, I'm glad for the experiences I got. Master's degree, I definitely tried more to get into the medical field, such as like through volunteering, creating my own events, but it was a completely different experience because when you're trying to just do community work and like host events for the community and stuff like that, there's much less barriers for entry. So if you want to work with the community center, they have lots of programs available that you could just plug into. And then by talking with more of the higher ups in the community center, you get more, I guess, leverage, and you're able to host your own events and stuff like that. With medicine, there's lots of, I guess, loopholes. Many people not really wanting to work. With doctors, they're able to do the work themselves, but they usually have some type of assistant or technicians that they want there to be to work up patients before seeing and stuff like that. So if you are trying to do a community service event, it's much harder to do that with a doctor with no technicians than with technicians. And well, you can't even really do it with the technicians and no doctor. So it's kind of like there's lots of more loopholes and barriers you have to cross. When you're trying to do those community service events. So from undergrad to now, I would have definitely in my master's program, I might have done a different master's program that kind of suited me like better, I guess. So my MCAT wasn't that hot outside of my master's program, like right when I finished, but there are some master's programs that help you with their MCAT as well, that do some MCAT prep along with their curriculum. So if I did something like that, that will probably help me out on the MCAT side of things. Or just there's some other programs that are with med schools themselves. So there are some master's programs that if you do those master's programs, it's almost not guaranteed admission, but they have a more favorable look at you before you get into their program. So just looking out more, but I was just really, I guess, busy in undergrad, and that's not really an excuse, but I just wasn't really trying to look too much for different things. Like I saw something that kind of fit with where I was at, so I just kind of took the opportunity when it came.
Yeah. So my last two questions, you've kind of sprinkled throughout our conversation. What are your plans for the near future? I know you said that you are looking to get into clinical research. You're working on your second application process if needed. We're praying that it's not needed, but if it is needed, what else are you planning to do?
Well, I'm just trying to build myself up more so outside of not just medicine, because I'm trying to get into med school, but I'm also trying to build myself up if I do not get into med school as well. So just making sure I have all bases covered. So financials, becoming more financially savvy, understanding more things such as just how the stock market works, stuff like that. I'm also looking into just anything like business related. I'm trying to just kind of figure out myself outside of medicine, because medicine for some people is their whole lives, but I have many different interests. Like, and while I'm not, while medicine is going to be like the forefront, it definitely is going to be not the only thing I do in my life. So I have other interests outside of medicine, and I definitely want to kind of explore those as well. So this time will give me time. If I do not get in, then this next year will give me time to just further my application, but also just figure out more about like what I want in life outside of just becoming a doctor, because you have a life outside of medicine, and it's important to know what you want in that as well. So yeah, that's about it.
That's good, because I want people to know that like the medical school application process is a long process in general. Let's say you don't even take any gap years. It's a long process. And when you do have gap years, like Emeka was saying, it's important that you figure out what you love, what your interests are outside of being a doctor, outside of medicine, because that can't be the only thing in your life. Because if it doesn't work out, then what are you going to do? So that was really good in stock markets. If you figure it out, help me out too, because I've been looking into it. I know Anthony is too. Plus,
Yeah.
all that is going to do is help you when you get into med school, because now you have passive income coming in.
Yep, that's the goal.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. Like, I'm glad I called you sometimes. Because yeah, it's definitely like catching up all the time, and yeah, definitely are motivating every time I talk to you. So